So very much for hanging out with me, fam, for another weekend, all right? We've got a big show for you, man. As always, the Rose Show Live will be here with her Faith Move next. And we talked to my man, the Laugh Therapist, later on in the show. We've got music on the way from Doe. We've got Corinne Hawthorne, Keandra Lockett, brand new William McDowell. Cannot wait to share that one with you as well, all right? And a whole lot more. Listen, follow me right now on social media.
Bank of Blue Valley is a proud sponsor of KUAW Radio. At Bank of Blue Valley, we believe that an understanding of financial values sets individuals up for a strong future. Whether you want to talk about checking and savings accounts, review lending alternatives, or discuss starting your own business, we have the right people to listen and advise. Visit us at bankbv.com to get started today. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This week on Making Contact,
I think election fraud has always been a problem and a concern to various extents. And the main issue, whether you're talking about paper ballots or voting machines, is transparency. Transparency is really the number one thing. I think you have to really have the public involved from beginning to end.
We've got people that are really trying to cheat to win at all costs. Remember, we are talking about power. Power is never going to be given away by anybody. It has to be taken.
In this Women Rising radio program, we featured two election protection activists.
All right, you're listening to KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio station. We don't only bring you videos on Facebook and YouTube, but listen to our audio only, where you'll get shows like Cheryl Underwood and Blues Time in the City. You can pick us up at www.kuaw.org or go to the TuneIn app and search KUAW. Listen to us. We're on 24 hours a day. That's KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio station. And this is what you hear every day from noon till 2. Don't miss the Cheryl Underwood Show.
That's right. We are live here this evening on KUAW Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom Radio. I'm your host, B. Michael. You're tuned in to Shifting Paradigms here at the W.B. Du Bois Learning Center, brought to you by the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. This is, November 16th? That's right. We're November 16th here. And so we had a guest that was going to be featured today by the name of Sister V. We were going to be talking about natural beauty paradigmatics, but unfortunately, she had a family emergency that she notified me today, sometime this afternoon. And so I'm going to definitely keep her and her family uplifted in prayer. We're going to hopefully reschedule her and get her back into the show sometime. But you're here with me this evening, and this is the improvisation paradigmatic. So, I have some things I want to get into. Been having a lot of thoughts about that, so everything does take place for a reason. But my prayers again are with the sister and her family, that everything comes out all right with them. But Shifting Paradigms is a program whose mission is to stimulate critical thought in order to realistically redefine our narrative and positively reshape our reality through dialogue with self-determination. I always got to give a shout out to Baba G, and Mama G's here today on the panels holding it down. And so Mama Walker. And so we are definitely doing what we do here on the air at KUAW. But today we're just going to go over a couple of topics. I have some reflections I want to give from some of our past shows, some of our previous features. We're going to talk about some election matters, the coronavirus, some things surrounding that, as well as just some upcoming shows. So, we're going to go through that. But if anyone who's listening in, if you have any input to add, if you have any questions you want to ask, you're more than welcome to call in at 816-599-6893. And you can also respond on the live feed on Facebook, the KUAW Radio Facebook. So you can definitely chime in on there as relates to this show. And so just looking back on the past few months, what we have actually, accomplish here with Shifting Paradigms. I'm just very thankful for this opportunity to share information with you all, and to have a pretty good listening audience. And I'm just humbled that you all are tuning in to what this show is presenting to you. I pray that you find the information and the insights to be edifying and to be insightful and to be useful and practical for you as well. We've covered several things. One of our first shows that we got into was a diaspora paradigmatic. Well, not one of our first, but in terms of our more recent shows, we've dealt with diaspora paradigmatics with Ambassador Prince Michael out of Kennesaw, Georgia. And we talked about how the African Union in 2012 has afforded the diaspora, the entire diaspora, particularly for African Americans and their concern for our experience here in America, an opportunity to form a provisional government that all 55 heads of state in the African continent are desirous to assist us in becoming more of a contributing member and presence to the African Union. And so we discussed how we can have actually diplomatic status in the United States as ambassadors of the African Union. And this is in response to the crises that we are experiencing here in the United States, be it politically, socially, economically, educationally, all these living areas, the areas of activity in life that for instance, like Neely Fuller and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing have identified: science, education, labor, law, politics, all these different areas of activity. We find ourselves at times, more than not, in a crisis situation with that. And so, the African Union has responded to our situation with an opportunity to empower ourselves. And this is something that I definitely, see as a viable solution to some of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight. But Ambassador Prince Michael was on our show via Zoom and provided us with some good information with the diaspora paradigmatic. We then had a show with Villalobos Vitality with energy paradigmatics. Alex Villalobos McAnderson was on the show, and we talked about her journey as well into a holistic and health and well-being journey, and also her profession and what she's doing as well, and that she is providing people with a healing experience and many of the different modalities that she offers to get people into a place of wellness and wholeness, spirit, mind, body alignment. And we had a great conversation, a dynamic conversation about that. So that was an energy paradigmatic that we discussed. We also discussed the peace paradigmatic with Brother Kevin Muhammad of the Nation of Islam and our local chapter here, our local mosque here. And we did discuss matters as relates to what's going on with the police violence. We discussed matters as relates to some of the phenomena that was taking place with Nick Cannon and Deshaun Jackson statements about who is not Jewish, right? So we discussed that and got a little insight about the mind of Minister Farrakhan from one of his members in the Nation of Islam locally. And we had a great dynamic conversation about that, and really just wanted to get into the mind of Islam and share some of the points as relates to that, so that people can really get a lot of misconceptions dispelled. I think what happens is we get a lot of hearsay, and I wanted to give the brother and the nation an opportunity, even though I'm not a Muslim myself, but I think that people deserve at least to be heard and understand where perspectives are and what is being said in actuality, as opposed to some of the spins that take place from other media sources. We have our opportunity to have a platform to speak our words and our voice and to share our perspective unfiltered. That's something that we need to take advantage of. And so with Kevin Muhammad, that was what we brought with the peace paradigmatic. We then had a show with Wise Intelligent of the Poor Righteous Teachers, and also he's a solo recording artist. But we had an intelligence paradigmatic where we talked about the police terrorism that was taking place and it is taking place, and his music, and how his music has been a vehicle for upliftment and really consciousness, to really delve into the depths of consciousness and culture. And he has been consistent in his music, from 1989 to the present. His message really has not deviated from what, he proclaims as being wise, intelligent. And so he talked about his journey, growing up in Newark, New Jersey, and coming into the hip hop industry and still leaving a mark of that golden era of hip hop, and still blazing microphones with some very profound and insightful lyrics. So that was a great show that we had with Wise Intelligent. We then had a healing paradigmatic with a sister by the name of Tyler Norman, and she is a author. She published her first book this year. So we talked about a love. Her book slips my mind, but we talked about a love within that would never leave without, I believe is the name of it, something of that nature. And it was just a very powerful conversation with a younger sister that really showed that our younger generation, our youth, our young adults are very well equipped to encounter life and to uplift and to share their experience and information, with our people, so that there can be that gap, that generation gap can get closed. And it was just very encouraging and insightful to deal with a young sister who had such a pretty good grasp on life, such grasp on life that was able to just articulate her experiences, her views, and to share, her journey in a way that can assist others. So that was a very, very stimulating conversation as well. We then had a literary paradigmatic with a sister, Michelle Hill, who is a Kansas City, Kansas native, and she has recently launched her blog and has gone into her entrepreneurial venture with the Black Sunflower. And we talked about her journey into the literary world and just with art in general, and what she has set to do in terms of bring to the Midwest a Black presence of the literary genre and just art in general, and how her blog seeks to really uplift the Black aesthetic in the art world. And it was a very good conversation that we had with her as well. Our second to most recent show that we had dealt with entrepreneurial paradigmatics with Daniel Smith and Sharon Thompson of the Porterhouse, Kansas City. And we just talked about, how important it is for us to get our business affairs in order and to make sure that, we are seeking to create a vision and a legacy for ourselves as well, and to really understand entrepreneurship is taking that extra risk and assuming it and turning your vision into a reality. And so seeing what they have done from their early stages of getting the Porterhouse KC off the ground to where it is now is just a huge encouragement and a testimony to their commitment to assisting the community. They provide a very viable service to other entrepreneurs, who are in their fledgling stages to get into a place where they can have the resources and the information to be successful. And so they provided their insights and experiences with entrepreneurial paradigmatics. And our most recent show just 2 short weeks ago dealt with transformative paradigmatics with Dr. Rodney and Sister Stephanie Smith of what was the name of their company? It just slipped my mind, but it dealt with oh my goodness, Sophic Solutions. That's what it is, Sophic Solutions. And they talked about our experience here in the United States, in the diaspora as African people, and how they have contributed to the healing process of dealing with racism, and injustice, oppression, and things of that nature, and dealing with diversity and inclusion, and how we can go about healing those wounds that are so deep buried in the United States fabric of society. And so with that, we really had a heartfelt conversation about, our present in light of the past, as well as what this election, has brought forth. Or the past administration, really, if you look at it, the past several administrations have really brought forth a lot of light about who is who and where people stand. And that's essential. I believe that is essential. We have to really be able to have a clear lens on how we see this world and making sense of what is taking place, in our environment, and how we can make this a better world. What can we do to make this a better place now, but also for the future? How can we assure that our children and their children inherit a world that is, not as on fire as it is now, you know. And so we talked about how to transform that, and it was a very, very enlightening conversation that I had with them. But again, you're listening to Shifting Paradigms. I'm your host, B. Michael. We're just going into some improvisation paradigmatics. I just wanted to go over some of the shows that we've hosted and just reflect on them and really just give thanks again to my featured guests that have come on air with me, and to the listeners. You know, you all are much appreciated, and I'm very thankful to have this opportunity to bring this information in the spirit that is in me to share with you all. And so I did have some topics that I wanted to get into, but also, you know, if you all have any questions, any thoughts that you all want to share, any comments, you can call in again. Our number is 816-599-6893. You can also leave comments on the KUAW Radio Facebook page and can respond to those. And so just getting into some things that have been on my mind, you know, looking at this past election. You know, it's so interesting to see how, you know, all eyes globally were glued on that night and have really been intent on making change in some way, shape, form, or fashion because of the expressed discontent of the past 4 years under the Trump administration, and how, you know, particularly African Americans have really felt a need, you know, to bring forth a newness, you know, a different type of administration. And personally, I think that administrations like Trump, though there may not be, you know, agreement with many of the policies and the rhetoric that is used, I'm of the mind that those types of administrations are actually what are much more better for us, in the sense that we can see what is truly before us and we can navigate through the waters more effectively and know what steps we need to take in order to improve our condition. And so when we're dealing with politics and the political pageantry of elections and things of that nature, you really have to take into account the theater of the matter as well. And you have to also look at the spirit of the matter that is behind it. So I'm gonna get on a little soapbox, because my perspective of this is just me speaking. I'm gonna speak for myself, disclaimer, right? We're dealing with an entirely different system in the sense that it has its mission, it has its purpose, it has its place in history to fulfill that which it has been created to do. And if we are able to look historically at the United States, and I would add from my lens a prophetic awareness as well, and understanding who the United States is prophetically in spirit. What is the spirit of this country? Because this is where we are, and this is where we have to identify ourselves in the globe of history, in the you know, the whole reality of where we are presently. And in so doing, that will allow us to make more clear discernments and judgments and distinctions, so that we are able to walk the way that we are supposed to walk, because we too have a purpose in this particular life, which we have to discover. And as relates to politics, my point is that there are two systems that are in operation on earth as we speak. Those two systems are, one, the system of a secular reality, which most world governments are today. And then you have a spiritual reality. And to get it more defined, you have the system of, I will just make it state like plain, like you have a system of, say, of a satanic entity, you have an adversarial system, and you also have the system of the Most High, the system of who most of the world knows as God. I know him as Yah. And when we look at this, and there's many different, you know, theocratic types of governments, but my perspective personally comes from a Torah-based biblical, scriptural perspective, which speaks of a kingdom that a people are called to bring forth. And in light of that, my personal perspective is the more we are engaged in systems that are not in alignment and not seeking to bring forth the reality that the people who are in covenant with the mighty one of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if we are not bringing that forth, well, then what system are we participating in? And these are very distinct lines today. What we're doing is we're seeing people become who they are and reveal themselves. And this is so imperative for us to make sense of. You're seeing people who are truly children of light, and you're seeing people who are truly children of the dark. And in so doing, we have to mark them and know how we are to walk in this world. Not be of it, we are told, but to be in this world. And we have to go about repairing this age. That is what is most significant. How do we go about repairing this age and healing souls who are wounded and broken and oppressed and exploited? Because it still takes place. How do we go about rectifying this situation right now? And it's so interesting when you hear who I know as the ascended master, Yahushua, son of Joseph, the Messiah. He tells us the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Well, what does that mean? That means that we have the responsibility to labor to bring it forth. It is present because he tells us it is within you. The kingdom is in you. We are the government. We are the kingdom, right? But what has happened is we have been systematically disenfranchised from that particular reality because we have empowered an entirely different system that is opposed, diametrically opposed to the reality of a kingdom that is to bring forth justice, that is to bring forth truth, that is to bring forth righteousness, that is to bring forth compassion and mercy and love. But when you are blinded and you are completely allegiant to a system that is only known to suck blood, literally, then we have some serious adjustments to make in our view, in our field of view. And it is that serious. It is that serious. It is a matter of life and death. It is a matter of salvation and redemption. Because as we look at what the history of this country has carried out from its inception as the United States of America and how they dealt with the indigenous people here initially upon sight, well, we see a legacy of brutality. We see a legacy of just merciless thirst and lust for power. And the interesting thing is humanity being present in this, we see the best and the worst of humanity in that, because this is not indicative, what I'm stating is not indicative of the entire population of this country. I'm talking about systems, though. When we look at systems at work, which are so important for us to examine, then we can see how this system has historically, and I will again say prophetically, worked itself into the present. And so what we're seeing in the Trump administration is really nothing new. Nothing new. And I can recall myself when I discovered that the first 15 presidents, 16 presidents were slave owners. It completely threw my whole view of the United States into a new field, because as my education taught me, these are people who were never told lies. George Washington never told a lie. These were people who had the upright moral standard of righteousness. But here it is, they're enslaving an entire group of people, human beings, and relegating them into property. And so as we're looking at the landscape today, and you still see plantation patrol going about carrying out wishes of brutality and repressive acts, then we can say that, you know, as much has changed, much has stayed the same. So going back to what I was saying about the African Union, we have to start seeking for our own solutions. We have to find viable alternatives, because we've done this since 1965. And what have we gotten but the same results over and over? There's memes that you see, you know, different administrations in office, but you look at the hood so-called, you know, the urban community remains in the same condition. And then you have individuals like, you know, they said Ice Cube and P. Diddy went to approach Trump about an agenda that can be done for black folks, so to speak, and they're castigated for seeking to make a change, for seeking to, you know, get into the ear of this leader and see how we can have power. And power yields nothing without a demand. And this is what we have to understand about politics. Politics now is about finances. It's about the lobby. And if you do not have the resources to make that lobby effective, well, your interests really are not going to be heard. It's unfortunate that it is the way today. You know, politics is supposed to be the art of how we relate to one another. It's the art of relationship. The science, the art and science of relationship is what politics is supposed to be. But it has become a business. And that is what the United States has classically done. It has made everything into a commercial effort. And this is where you see that the lust of money is the root of all evil. And that is where we have to really start delineating these things. Everything is about profit. But then the time of crisis is when the time for profits. And I don't mean just financial profits, also for those who speak the word of the Most High and proclaim repentance and proclaim and expose the darkness with light. And this is what we have to do for those who it is, you know, stirring within. And that's what Shifting Paradigms is here for, is to present perspectives and paradigms that are not mainstream. We got to see things by thinking critically. This is where we have to see things in the mind's eye. We have to see things and understand the spirit behind the times, so that we can make sense of where we are right now, because a lot of things don't make sense. Why are African Americans so hostile against one another when you have to look at the program that was put into play to make that a reality? And all this relates to the political climate. All this relates to the political climate. And again, this is a matter of kingdom versus kingdom. And whose kingdom do we find ourselves allegiant to is the question that we have to ask ourselves. And this is why it says you can't serve two masters. Joshua, the son of Nun, said, choose you this day who you shall serve. But as for me and my house, we shall serve the Most High, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's who I seek to serve. There's a passage in Isaiah 33, verse 22. It says, Yah is my king. He's the executive branch. Yah is my judge. He's the judicial branch. Yah is my lawgiver. He's the legislative branch. He shall save me. Because our redemption will not come from any secular system of man. It comes from within us. The kingdom is in us, and we have to bring that forth. And there's a phrase that I like to say in light of what the Trump administration had brought forth in its first administration with Make America Great Again. My phrase is make Yah great again. Make the King of Kings great again. And that is strictly through our obedience to his word. That's all it takes. Because that will then put us in a position to receive that anointing to go about carrying forth the duties that are within us. That's the secret of righteousness, is obedience. So this election season was very interesting. Of course, we're seeing how this divide is taking place, and it's so beautiful. I was talking with a colleague a couple weeks ago about this divide, and that divide is essential because that divide again goes back again. I'm gonna go back to Genesis. Everything is separated. The righteous have to be separated from the wicked. The light has to be separated from the dark. The waters have to be separated. So when you look at how, let's say, a garden grows, when you get the harvest, you have to separate the wheat from the tares, or the fruit from the weeds. You got to make sure your garden is as weed free as possible. And so what is taking place is an expose of who the weeds are and who the fruit is. And that is how we know who to gather with. That is how we know how to build this kingdom with. Because that's what this time is for. And the kingdom is not just going to fall out of heaven in our lap. We got to bring this forth with work. Roll our sleeves up and get it going. And so this election season is very intense. You know, the racism is exasperating. You know, it is just proliferating as well. It's just expanding. You're just seeing people be so hateful. You know, so again, this is exposing all that. It's bringing all that to the forefront. And I think of it like this, right? There was a senator out of Minnesota by the name of Jesse Ventura. He was a former wrestler. And when you look at what the Trump administration has done in stoking up all these different sentiments, so to speak, it's political theater. And I said that early on in this particular portion here dealing with this election. But Jesse Ventura was saying that politics is much like wrestling, because he was a professional wrestler before he got into politics. He said when the lights and cameras on, the Democrats and the Republicans can't stand each other. They're going at each other's throat. They're rah, 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 you know, just going and beefing, so to speak. He said, but when the lights are off, they're going to dinner. They're in the same social clubs. They're shaking hands. They're laughing, right? And they're playing tricks on us because they are not concerned about the working class, because they're not the working class. They're the bourgeoisie and the elites. And they have not the same interests of us as the working class, as the labor. And they will keep us in that position in order to maintain the status quo. And so we have to examine this and make sense of this as relates to our liberation and to our salvation. I would even add to that, because the power lies with the people. And that's what we have to understand. But again, you're listening to Shifting Paradigms. I'm your host, B. Michael. We're going to take a brief intermission for station identification. If you do want to call in, if you have any questions, 816-599-6893. Any comments, any insights, anything you want to share, come on the air and just share with Shifting Paradigms. But we'll return in a brief moment.
All right, you're listening to KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio station. We don't only bring you videos on Facebook and YouTube, but listen to our audio only, where you'll get shows like Cheryl Underwood and Blues Time in the City. You can pick us up at www.kuaw.org or go to the TuneIn app and search KUAW. Listen to us. We're on 24 hours a day. That's KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio station. And this is what you hear every day from noon till 2. Don't miss the Cheryl Underwood Show.
It's the jump off. Welcome to the Cheryl Underwood Show.
That's what I'm talking about. Courtney Black. Where are we going, Kyle Irving?
George R. Smith College in Sedalia, Missouri. It was open from 18.
It's Courtney Black with the facts on Cheryl Underwood Radio, and you are in the entertainment segment with Courtney and Kyle. It's time for a social media shout out. Today I'm shouting out from Instagram my girl Donna Webster. What's up, Donna? We appreciate you, girl. If you want me to shout you out, follow us on Instagram at Cheryl Underwood Radio.
You are listening to KUAW Radio, home of the all-new Jamal Bakes Show, and I'm Jamal Bakes, and thank you so very much for listening to the station bringing you talk, news, entertainment that you won't get anywhere else. KUAW, in, of, and about our community.
This is comedian Janelle Banks, and you are listening to KUAW, Kansas City.
This weekend is the last weekend before Thanksgiving, and on Blues Time in the City.
You say I be bashing men's.
Man bashing? That's Miss Jody. Man bashing. She's talking this weekend And Tina Turner's birthday is on Thanksgiving Day, so we're showing Tina much love. Join me, Roger Bailey, for Blues Time in the City. Your weekend stop for the best in blues and southern soul. This weekend, right here.
And we are back here, Shifting Paradigms. I'm B. Michael, your host this evening. We were just talking about some of the election matters surrounding that. And now, you know, with this spike in the coronavirus, we have a new mayoral order in Kansas City that is going to take effect, that is going to cause, you know, some more slowdowns is what the particular order is calling for. It's not a shutdown, but it is a slowdown. And it's so interesting because this is what the society needs. We need to slow down sometimes. We are at a breakneck speed. You know, the scriptures, again, I refer to the scriptures because it's just a principle that I seek to, you know, assimilate my life to. But it says the wicked have no rest. The wicked just continue to go breakneck speed. But the way nature works is nature finds time to rest. And this slowdown of the coronavirus, of COVID-19 that is taking place, is causing us to really examine what we value, what is important to us right now. What is life? How are we living? With over 1 million infected, hundreds of thousands have passed. What is important right now? And these are things that are taking place, you know, in light of this with the elections as well. You know, all these things coming together in this season present a very, very interesting paradigm for us to examine and to make sense of so that we can live. The scriptures tells us to choose life. And I don't think I can speak for myself. I haven't done that all the time. I'll just speak for myself. And that's something that I have to do. I have to really take life by the horns and live. And live in harmony with my brothers and sisters. And so this coronavirus, this virus that attacks your respiratory system, your spirit, it attacks your spirit. We have to really make sense of this. Why is this taking place? Because there's a pruning that is taking place. If anyone pays attention to the heartbeat of the earth, which is called the Schumann resonance, it's accelerating. The vibration of the earth is accelerating. So that means its awareness is peaking. Its energetic pulsation is picking up pace. Because what this is preparing for is an evolutionary shift in consciousness. In consciousness. And your health is imperative as relates to that evolutionary shift. If you are not a healthy person, you cannot enter into a holy place. And our health is imperative. This means our diet has to be re-examined. Our activities have to be re-examined. And when I do say diet, let me go back. This is not just your food. What are you taking into your system, period? What do your eyes receive? What do your ears receive, right? What are you putting on your skin? What are you touching? What are you allowing yourself to come into contact with? Because those are all gates that go to your systems. And these systems, going back to what I was talking about the election, examining these systems, we have to examine our systems. How is our nervous system functioning? How is our immune system functioning, right? How is our digestive system functioning? How are all of our systems functioning? Are we ruled by our autonomic system, our autonomic nervous system? Are we just instinctual? Or are we using the higher capacities of our nervous system, getting into the limbic and even the neocortex part of the brain so that we can get into that higher state of consciousness and elevate our vibration and make the transition into this higher evolutionary shift with creation? Because what happens in creation when things become outdated, when things become dead and stagnant, they just transition out. They phase out. That's evolution. That's differentiation. That's adaptation. Are we able to adapt to our new environment? Because this is a pruning that is taking place. And pruning creates growth, qualitative growth, though. Qualitative growth. And so with this COVID, you know, there's now talk about these vaccines that are coming out. And that they're supposedly 94.5% effective. Can you tell me something? What are the side effects, though? What are the ingredients of that? Just like our foods, are we looking at the ingredients of our foods? Because there's a lot of toxicity in that. They call it nutricide. A lot of people eat a lot, but they're starving. Why? Because their cellular structure is malnourished. They're not getting mineral, nutritional content. They're not getting the vitamin content. They get a lot of calories, but they're not getting nutrition. So with these vaccines, it's the same thing. Well, I'm not saying science is bad. Science can be great if it's used appropriately, but if it's for profit, then there's some problems. If you take out the spirit, like the Hippocrates, the person who is attributed with the Hippocratic Oath, what he did was he took the spirit out of medicine and made it a business. You can look that up. And so when you take the spirit out of medicine, which medicine comes from the earth, and you create these synthetics and you create things that are artificial, and then you put these artificial things into your system, well, you got to ask yourself, what are the side effects? And for us who watch television from time to time, or who watch television regularly, and you see these pharmaceutical commercials come on and you hear the litany of side effects that are present due to taking something just to get rid of one symptom, some problems. So what's the solution? What's the alternative? Because everything has to be about viable alternatives. Well, the viable alternative is to get healthy. Be proactive in it. And give thanks to the Most High for your health. Because that ultimately is where it comes from. That's the favor and the mercy that we receive in staying in alignment with that. So we have to get more attuned with that as well. And we have to get attuned with one another, because it is taking an economic hit too. We're looking at the effects of this coronavirus. It's having major impacts on economics, household incomes, homelessness, hunger. So this is a prime time, again, for prophets to step up and to address these needs and to meet the need of humanity, because we are one race. Let's be clear about that. We are one race of people. Racism is a myth. I've said that on the show before. It is a pseudoscience. This is what Dr. Rodney Smith said during Transformative Paradigmatic. It is a pseudoscience. Racism does not exist. It is an economic, socio-economic, and political tactic to divide and conquer, to keep the working class at each other's throat. That's the intent of it. And so when we're looking at the economics of this, we have to understand, yes, we may not have the finances to do things, but we have other ways to go about securing our livelihood. Whatever happened to bartering? Whatever happened to sweat equity? Whatever happened to loving your neighbor as yourself? It's become estranged. It's become distant. We're not dealing with each other as human beings anymore. But that's what happens when you're just at this breakneck pace of life and trying to go about, surviving. But we have to get to a place where we're able to actually live and experience life and love life and love one another. Because that's the human element that we have to get back to. The human element is so imperative for us to really tap into within ourselves. For me, these past few months have been a huge season of healing. going back to my childhood and looking at some of my experiences in childhood that were traumatic, that I just suppressed and did not deal with as an adult, which will play out. It'll come out, in some very broken ways. It'll be a disorder. And so, these are very intense seasons for us to really reflect in these slow down orders. You got to look at the spirit behind that. What is all this meaning? The coronavirus, the crown, right? The crown is coming for crowns. It's trying to take your crown. We have sovereignty within us. The Creator has made us a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. But are we reflecting that as a people, as a humanity? And yes, there's a balance to it all. There's a time and a season for everything under the heavens. But we have to make sure that that balance is for life. Because we're experiencing way too much death. Kansas City has over 60 homicides? Broke the record, and the year isn't even over. And the deaths from coronavirus, these things are I would say preventable. We can avoid these tragedies and disasters in life if we tap into the spirit that is within us. And this is what all this is doing right now for. All this is for that, for us to examine ourselves and to take our lives into account and make sense of it, and then go and bring life and light to this dark and dying earth. It's too much going on that is not in order. And the only way this planet is going to get in order is if we get it in order. And we can't rely on a government to do that, because we are that government. We are the change. We have to be the change that we want to see. And so as we're dealing with all these particular matters of election, coronavirus, it's just a time for us to really take some time to get still. Meditate now. I would encourage you all to meditate more, to focus on your breath, to get still. Turn off your television, unplug, disconnect to connect more with life. Yeah, we rely on artificial intelligence, but what about your organic intelligence? What about your Wi-Fi connection to the heavens? What about that? Have you tapped into that lately? Right? Improve your prayer life. Study, read. Use your imagination more. Stimulate your mind, as Smokey would say. Stimulate your mind, right? Get into the higher vibrations of life. Balance your life more. At a bare minimum, balance your life more. Right? Supplement things. Take an hour to read as opposed to an hour to just get on social media. Talk with people. Have organic interactions. Love yourself. That's probably the most important thing that I'm learning right now, is to love myself, to learn to really love and take care of me, and to set my boundaries and to establish the reality that I desire to experience. And we'll do that. And then we'll go on to that next level. So again, this is Shifting Paradigms. I'm your host, B. Michael. I just wanted to do some improvisation type of stuff. We have some great shows coming up. This next show is about to be very powerful for me. It's going to be very personal as well. I'm going to be dealing with the co-parenting paradigmatic with Candace Benton. She's the mother of my middle child, and we've had a very interesting experience in our co-parenting experience, bringing things to a focus with our son, Noah Eli. She's in Chicago, and so we're just going to be talking about the trials and travails and the successes even of co-parenting. And that's something that we as a people really have to get in order. I'm I'm not ashamed to say that I have, 3 children with 3 women, and I seek to be the best father that I can be in my circumstance. And dealing with childhood trauma and some of the decisions that I've made growing up and becoming a man, still becoming a man, that has been a challenge for me because my father pretty much, voided me out of his life at the age of 5, 6 years old. And so the patterns and the systemics that ensued from that are inevitable, especially if they're not addressed and you're not dealing with them in a way that is going to be healthy so that you can overcome that and get ahead of it. And that's something I didn't allow myself to do. So now I find myself in co-parenting circumstances that have their challenges, but again, they have their successes and their rewards as well. All my children know me, praise the Most High, and we have daily communication with one another. And I'm just thankful to have that opportunity, with my children. After that, that's going to be December 2nd. The December 16th show is going to be a cinematic paradigmatic with a brother whose name is Dennis Delamer. He's going to be talking about some of the productions and movies that he's done and what his ideology is and what his perspectives are and why he does what he does with film. He's not a local brother. He is from out of state. And he has some very interesting perspectives that I believe, need to be tapped into and to be acknowledged at a bare minimum. As his views are very poignant and powerful and culturally centered. And I wanted to definitely, tap into his mind and get his cinematic paradigmatic brought to the forefront with shifting paradigms. We will have a local historian, one of my close comrades by the name of Eric Stafford here. We're going to be talking about KC History Paradigmatics. He's the founder of the KC Tour Company, and he does a phenomenal job. He's been doing this for well over 10 years, going around giving walking tours in Kansas City, going down to the Jazz District and giving downtown and the West Bottom tours and Westport tours. And he's just a wealth of information that provides this city a rich quality, I would call him a griot, information. He preserves the history of this city, particularly from an African-American perspective, that is just so important for us to hold on to and understand who we are and what we've come through and what we still have to do. So we're going to have a very powerful conversation with Eric Stafford as relates to KC History Paradigmatics. We're going to have another local artist here in Kansas City by the name of KUAW Muhammad. He's a part of the, oh my goodness, I forgot which dance company he's called, but he has a dance company that he is a part of, that he is going to talk about some art as well, but he's going to be talking about the Sankofa paradigmatic. And we're going to just talk about, some cultural matters as relates to our upliftment, some health matters, consciousness as well. Quarib is a young man that I've known since he was a boy, maybe a young teenager, and he's a part of a dance troupe, music society that has done events at Kwanzaa here in Kansas City with the Kansas City Black United Front, and he's just matured into a very fine young man and is about business and about life, and I really respect the young man for what he's becoming and undergoing and seeking to leave his imprint and legacy with the community. After that, it's going to be a very interesting show. We're going to be talking about Kung Fu paradigmatics with one of my instructors. His name is Mikey Reyes, and he is a very, very special brother, and has a lot of information about life. And that's one of the main premises that he has with his class, and that he is saying Kung Fu is not just a martial arts system, it is a lifestyle. And that's something that I've definitely picked up from him and sought to implement into my life. And we're going to bring him on the air. We're going to talk about some of his philosophies and what some of the art does, for him, not only in terms of just being, conditioned and ready in the face of, a threat, but also just how to engage life. at its purest, with that open mind and open hand type of gentle internal art of Kung Fu. And so he's going to be on our show in February, and we're going to be discussing some things with him. And then more than likely, we will have the sister V come back in February, and we'll discuss natural beauty paradigmatics, which was to be our discussion today. As we were going to discuss her journey, her perspective, and some projections that she has in terms of natural beauty and how this all relates to self-image and self-esteem, particularly for the African-American woman. And so this got some exciting shows coming up. Got a lot of things on the plate, hopefully that, just continue to unfold here on KUAW period. The many dynamic shows that we have. We got one coming up very soon. I believe Skrilltown. Is it Skrilltown up next? They're going to be up next in this next hour. And they just came out, swinging and have a lot of good followers, doing their thing on the air and just promoting, I believe, a musical thrust that is, very unique to Kansas City and even in this country. And so if you definitely want to tune in to Skrilltown after that. But yeah, if anybody wants to, get on the show or have any topics that are wanted to be, brought to the light on Shifting Paradigms, you can definitely email me. You can email me at bmichaellong@gmail.com. bmichaellong, that is 2 L's in there, BMICHAELLONG@gmail.com. You can just, make suggestions for things like that. I'm certainly open to that. And anything that, you all want to share as well, please feel free to do that. And we can definitely go. I see we had a couple comments on there. My auntie commented. Good suggestions from Candace Bitten, Aki. All right, that's what's good. Thank you all for tuning in to the show and listening. But yeah, this is just B. Michael here, Shifting Paradigms. Had a little improvisation, so a lot of this stuff was off the cuff last minute. I was kind of taking some notes and some ideas at work and just, let the spirit speak through the overflow of my heart about, what I'm experiencing and seeing in life myself. But I want to thank again the listeners for tuning in to Shifting Paradigms. I always want to thank KUAW, the Black Family Technology Awareness Association, for hosting this dynamic platform. And we will be back in about 2 weeks again with co-parenting paradigmatics with Candace Benton, as we will be discussing how to raise our children in a two-parent, well, not in a one-parent home where the two parents are not together, but we'll see how that can all be made smooth for the children's sake. But again, thank you for listening in. This is B. Mike. I'm going to go ahead and sign off this evening, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. So thank you all for tuning in. Peace and blessings. Shalom, shalom.